Sarah, obviously a lot to touch on. What is the most important thing out of D.C. for you this week?
So I'm really quite troubled, Brian, and good morning, by the way. I'm troubled by the 30 million unemployed. We have seen in the last week an increase in the number of people filing unemployment claims. This is showing that the economic situation is not moving in a good direction. At the same time that you see an increase in the number of unemployed, you have also an increase in the number of cases. The U.S. is by far now outpacing the rest of the world in terms of the number of cases. So we are seeing two really very troubling indicators here. The FOMC, the Fed, is moving into a set of meetings this week, and they're going to need to figure out what to do. And at the same time, we've got a proposal, a need to extend really the unemployment benefits and the program that is expiring at the end of this month. So there's a lot converging this week in terms of the economy, in terms of the pandemic. So, and we've got some policy-making decisions to make in the midst of it.
And those deficit hawks I referenced, Sarah, they're going to have to go back to their nest. I mean, the reality is this, this was a largely government-enforced lockdowns in states and in parts of the country, and people lost their jobs because of nothing they've done, just because the pandemic, and they were forced to shut down in many cases. But you got a Federal Reserve balance sheet, which is now $7 trillion. I mean, it's funny, Sarah. It's not funny. It's 537 women and men, Senate, House, President, Vice President, who fight over a $4 trillion budget every year. We now have a Federal Reserve Board, of which you used to be a part, which is now overseeing a balance sheet that's almost double that of the entire United States annual budget. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And at the same time that we are looking and policymakers and Americans have to look at the size of those deficits, we also are at a precarious moment economically. And we don't want to be, penny wise and pound foolish at this moment. At this moment of time, people are really dealing with a very precarious state. People are about to deal with the next months of utility bills, of rent, of mortgages. Many people are still, 30 million, are not in jobs. And while there are, while it's completely awful to look at that 30 million number, you have to look at it in comparison to the number of jobs that are available. And the last time I looked, there were only about 5 million jobs that were available for these 30 million people. And so you see a great divide between the number of jobs that are actually available for people to go back to and the number of people who need them.
Yeah, I think it was a Yelp study over the weekend that a large percentage, something like half of restaurants who've shut may never reopen again in New York City and some other major places. Sarah, this is really a terrifying time. Do you think that the actions that have been taken are the right prescription for an improved economy? And what do you see as far as the economy once the pandemic either winds itself down naturally, as it will at some point, or a vaccine is developed?
Right. So the first order of business for the economy is to deal with the pandemic. That is what is driving almost entirely these extraordinarily devastating economic results. So the pandemic needs to be brought under control. Everything that can be done to deal with it those steps need to be taken. As a set of economic policy measures that have been taken, yes, they have been appropriate. Now, they've been slow in many cases, and they have been too late. And the problem, of course, with that is that the benefits are not getting into people's pockets in enough time to be able to do much. I am concerned about this latest package that is being put forth. Now, of course, it's not the final deal because it needs to get negotiated with the House. But by cutting unemployment benefits from $600, which was an amount that it was a rough number, but it got the amount out the door quickly, to something that is a more a more refined way of doing, a formula, but is going to really cut people's benefits dramatically. I think this is dangerous. I think this is going to leave people worse off than they were. And again, as you pointed out, Brian, this is through no fault of their own. They didn't ask to be unemployed. They didn't ask to lose their jobs, and they don't want to stay at home. They do want to work, but they have to have jobs to go back to, and that is what this proposal does nothing about.